Why did Jungkook walk into New York Fashion Week looking like this, praised like royalty, yet making fans cry with shock? Could his Calvin Klein moment be hiding something deeper? Comment your thoughts, hit like, and subscribe to join the discussion. This is one headline you won't forget. Why did thousands of people suddenly scream, cry, and even freeze the moment Jungkook stepped onto the streets of New York? Why did a simple appearance turn into something that felt like history in the making? And more importantly, what shocking detail did fans capture on their phones that made social media explode within minutes? These are the questions haunting everyone who witnessed BTS's Jungkook at Fashion Week. And if you think this is just another celebrity sighting, you couldn't be more wrong. What unfolded was not only dramatic, but emotional, and left fans and even reporters speechless. Before you scroll away, pause for a moment. Did Jungkook just send a hidden message through his outfit, his walk, and his silence? Drop your opinions in the comments, smash that like button, and subscribe because this story demands your reaction. The air outside the Calvin Klein venue was suffocating, not just because of the summer humidity in New York, but because of the energy. Fans packed shoulder to shoulder, holding up their phones, hands shaking, tears forming before he even arrived. Some had flown across the world just for a glimpse, others camped outside for hours, and yet no one was prepared for the exact moment Jungkook's figure appeared from behind the black SUV. It wasn't just a man stepping out, it was a scene that felt choreographed like cinema. His oversized ash-grey suit flowed around him, his lip-piercing caught the light, and his quiet smirk sliced through the screams like a blade. Cameras didn't just click, they fired, rapid and endless, like fireworks in daylight. People cried, people shouted his name, but a silence also fell, as if everyone knew they were about to witness something that would dominate headlines. But here's the burning question. Why did fans cry? Was it simply the overwhelming presence of the BTS superstar? Or was it something more subtle, more emotional, hidden in the way he carried himself? Did he just show up as an ambassador? Or was there a statement stitched into every line of his outfit, every glance toward the crowd? The answer is not simple, because what Jungkook did in those few steps turned into a whirlwind of interpretations. Some fans saw pride, others saw sadness. Many whispered about the piercing glinting on his lip, saying it wasn't just fashion, but rebellion. And then came the shouts, "Praise like a king!" Because the energy around him didn't feel like an idol greeting fans. It felt like a coronation, an arrival of someone stepping into a new chapter of his life, watched not by a few, but by the entire world. What shocked everyone was not just the presence of Jungkook, but the reactions his presence pulled out of people. Fans were literally crying into their phones, trembling as if they had seen something larger than life. Even the photographers, professionals trained to stay cold and composed, were visibly moved, caught off guard, some lowering their cameras for a second just to take in the moment with their own eyes. This wasn't normal. This wasn't routine. This was a disruption. So what exactly did Jungkook do? Why did this appearance, just a fashion show on the surface, suddenly turn into a phenomenon? The truth lies in the details, his posture, his silence, the contrast between his calmness and the chaos around him. And here's where the story turns. Fans began to notice gestures, subtle but piercing. A hand slipping into his pocket, a bow so slight yet so deliberate. The choice of color in his outfit, muted, heavy, almost melancholic. Was this Jungkook's way of speaking without words? Was this his way of telling the world that this wasn't just another event, but a declaration? But wait, if Jungkook was praised like a king, why did some fans leave the scene in tears of confusion instead of joy? Why did whispers spread through the crowd that something wasn't right? The controversy started not with what Jungkook said. He said nothing, but with the way he moved. His silence was deafening. ARMY's know Jungkook. Playful, warm, always eager to connect with his fans. But this Jungkook, the one at Fashion Week, was different. He looked composed, almost untouchable, walking as though there was a wall between him and the screaming crowd. Was it confidence? Or was it pain disguised as calm? And here's where emotions caught fire, because armies began debating online within minutes. Why didn't he wave? One fan cried out on Twitter. He looked distant, like he was holding something back, another posted. The hashtags exploded, not just with admiration, but with concern. Some even accused the industry of pushing Jungkook too hard, turning his every public step into a performance. Was he being celebrated, or was he being used? The controversy deepened when fans noticed the piercing glimmer on his lip and the heavy, almost oversized cut of his suit. To some, it was revolutionary, a bold break from expectations, a statement that Jungkook was no longer a boy idol, but a man unafraid to rebel. To others, it felt like a cry for freedom, a visual metaphor for the weight he carries draped in a suit that seemed just a little too big, like the world was forcing him to fill shoes no human could. Was this Calvin Klein's vision? Or was it Jungkook's silent message to the world? And then came the moment that lit a fire under ARMY's emotions. A fan in the crowd shouted, "We miss you, Jungkook!" And for a split second, his eyes shifted, his lips pressed together, and he bowed not like a celebrity greeting fans, but like someone acknowledging their pain. That tiny gesture hit like an earthquake. People screamed louder. Some broke down crying, because in that instant, it felt like Jungkook wasn't just an idol on a runway, he was Jungkook, the human being, trapped between two worlds, the one where he belongs to millions, and the one where he might feel utterly alone. Is that why some armies left shaking their heads? Is that why Twitter lit up with arguments, half the fandom saying he looked powerful, the other half saying he looked broken? This was no longer just about fashion. This was about identity, about control, about the emotional price of being Jungkook of BTS. And here's the brutal question nobody wants to ask out loud. Did the world just watch Jungkook smile through pressure he didn't choose, dressed in clothes meant to celebrate him but that felt like chains? Or did we witness the birth of a new Jungkook? One who refuses to play by old rules and instead chooses silence, piercing stares, and controversial fashion to tell ARMY that he's evolving even if it breaks their heart. The truth is painful, and armies feel it. That's why social media is on fire. That's why people aren't just liking photos, but writing essays, crying in live streams, screaming in comments. Jungkook didn't just attend Fashion Week. He set it on fire, and the flames are burning straight into the hearts of his fans. If Jungkook's presence at New York Fashion Week was supposed to be a glamorous celebration, why did it end up dividing armies and sparking one of the most emotional online wars of the year? Was this a proud moment for BTS's youngest member? Or was it a painful display of how the industry squeezes every drop of power from its idols? The debate has consumed Twitter, TikTok, and fan forums, and the emotional scars are real. Some fans are furious not at Jungkook, but at the world surrounding him. They point to the way Calvin Klein and the media turned his every move into a spectacle, parading him before flashing cameras like a trophy instead of a person. "He looked like a king," one fan wrote. But why did it feel like he was being put on display, not celebrated? The controversy lies not in Jungkook's beauty or talent, those are undeniable, but in the way his silence and heavy aura seem to tell a different story than the headlines screaming "praised like royalty." Others noticed something darker. The oversized suit, the piercing glinting against his lips, The way he avoided locking eyes with the crowd for too long, it felt like rebellion, like he was screaming without sound. Was Jungkook trying to send ARMY a warning? A silent cry that he is trapped in a machine that glamorizes him but does not protect him. Fans have begun to dig into the footage, slowing down every second of his walk, analyzing his expressions frame by frame. What they see is not just confidence, it's conflict. And then came the accusations. Some armies openly questioned Hybe's role, asking if Jungkook was being pushed too hard, used as the face of Calvin Klein, not for his dream, but for corporate gain. Why does he always look tired? Why does he always have to carry the burden of perfection? These questions sting, because they don't blame Jungkook, they blame the system. The controversy has become bigger than one fashion show. It has become a rallying cry, protect Jungkook, but controversy cuts both ways. While some defended him passionately, others accused the fandom itself of being too demanding, of projecting pain onto him where none existed. Maybe he was just being professional, some fans argued. Why can't we let him enjoy this? That clash ripped through ARMY spaces like a storm. One side sees Jungkook as a prisoner of fame. The other sees him as finally claiming his independence. Which side is right? The answer hurts. Maybe both. And that is what makes this moment so explosive. Because Jungkook has always belonged to ARMY. But now, for the first time, it feels like he belongs to no one but himself. And that terrifies fans who fear losing the boy who once smiled so freely, replacing him with a man who wears rebellion and distance like armor. So here is the burning question. Was New York Fashion Week Jungkook's crowning moment? Or was it the most public display yet of the emotional chains he has been forced to carry? Armies are crying, arguing, breaking apart online, because no one wants to admit the possibility that their king is suffering in silence. And yet, perhaps that's the most controversial truth of all. What if Jungkook's triumphant walk into New York Fashion Week wasn't triumph at all, but a warning disguised as elegance? What if the tears streaming down ARMY's faces weren't from joy, but from an unspoken dread that the boy they watched grow into a man is being paraded before the world, praised like royalty, yet left more isolated than ever? The controversy took a darker turn the moment videos went viral of fans screaming his name, only for Jungkook to glance briefly before lowering his eyes again. He looked like he was holding something in, one fan posted, voice breaking in a live stream. He looked proud, but also like he was fighting tears. The fandom split violently, half declaring this was Jungkook finally showing his independence and power, the other half whispering that they had just seen their idol suffocating under the spotlight. What made ARMY's blood boil was not just the sight of Jungkook's silence, but the way media outlets twisted the moment. Headlines screamed about his sexy rebellion and godlike visuals, but ignored the emotion burning in his eyes. To fans, it felt like erasure, his humanity reduced to clickbait, his silence misinterpreted as arrogance when it might have been pain. One angry fan tweeted, "They don't see Jungkook, they see a brand, a product, and that breaks me." That tweet alone was retweeted thousands of times. Proof that the controversy was no longer about a fashion show, it was about whether Jungkook the human could survive Jungkook the legend. And then came the most shocking clip of all. A fan close to the barricades shouted, "Are you okay?" The cameras captured it, the words pierced the chaos, and Jungkook's lips moved. Some swear he mouthed, "I'm fine." Others insist they saw something else. A flicker of truth, a half-smile masking exhaustion. That tiny, almost invisible exchange lit a firestorm. Armies replayed it endlessly, some sobbing in disbelief. Was Jungkook fine, or was this the most heartbreaking lie he's ever told? The controversy turned volcanic when fans began to call out Calvin Klein and even Hybe directly. Why is Jungkook being worked like this? Why is every move monetized? Posts poured out like wildfire, some demanding justice, others demanding answers. Hashtags like "Protect Jungkook" and "High's Not Just Content" began trending worldwide. Armies weren't just emotional, they were enraged, united in the belief that their idol deserves better than to be trapped in this circus of cameras and contracts. And yet, amid the anger, a painful divide deepened. Some fans accused others of overreacting, of projecting sadness onto Jungkook, when maybe he was simply embodying strength and maturity. The debates got brutal, friendships fractured, fandom spaces grew hostile. The irony was unbearable. Jungkook's silence had not only shaken the industry, it had shaken ARMY itself. Here is the cruel question that now lingers like smoke after fire. Was New York Fashion Week Jungkook's greatest triumph? Or was it the moment that exposed just how fragile the line is between idol and prisoner, between celebration and exploitation? The truth burns, and ARMY feels it in their bones. Every scream outside that venue, every tear shed behind a phone screen, was not just about pride, it was about fear. Fear that their golden maknae is shining too brightly for a world that only wants to consume him. And that fear is what makes this controversy so devastating. How can the world cheer for Jungkook while armies watch him drown in the same applause? How can headlines glorify him as a fashion king, while fans whisper in private group chats that something about his silence feels like chains? These are not easy questions, but they are the questions tearing the fandom apart after New York Fashion Week. The controversy exploded further when high-definition fan cams revealed what mainstream media ignored. In the slow-motion replays, Jungkook's smile flickers. It isn't wide, it isn't free. It's restrained, almost like a mask. That small detail hit armies like a bullet. For some, it was confirmation that their idol was exhausted, carrying burdens too heavy for his shoulders. For others, it was a symbol of defiance, a man refusing to give away too much to the cameras. But the emotional war that followed was devastating. Fans who once stood united began clashing in public threads. One side screamed, "He's being used, wake up!" while another countered, "Stop making him look weak, he's stronger than all of us." The arguments grew ugly, with accusations flying, some saying Hybe forced this Calvin Klein partnership to milk his image, others defending it as Jungkook's choice. The result? A fandom in flames, each heart breaking in different ways. And yet, what burned ARMY most was not the debate itself, but the possibility that both sides might be right. Because yes, Jungkook looked stunning, powerful, godlike, but yes, he also looked heavy. As if the oversized suit wasn't just fashion but metaphor. Fabric too big, expectations too heavy, a throne too cold. The image of Jungkook, praised like a king, suddenly felt twisted as if the crown came with invisible shackles. That's when the hashtags turned sharp. Free Jungkook. He deserves peace. Stop exploiting Jungkook. Armies flooded Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram with emotional pleas, some crying into their cameras as they begged Hybe to protect him, not parade him. One viral TikTok, with millions of views, showed a fan whispering through tears, "He doesn't belong to them. He belongs to us, and they're breaking him." The comments filled with heartbreak, emojis, and rage, armies uniting in grief even as they fought among themselves. And then came the ultimate betrayal, mainstream media headlines twisting his silence into arrogance. Jungkook ignores fans at NYFW, one tabloid dared to write. That headline alone sent armies into meltdown. Fans who stood in the crowd defended him fiercely, posting proof that he bowed, that he acknowledged them, that he wasn't cold but careful. The anger boiled over not at Jungkook, but at the system that turns his smallest gestures into weapons against him. Was this really a celebration, or was it exploitation disguised as glory? Was Jungkook's lip-piercing a fashion statement, or a silent rebellion against being treated like a mannequin? Was his silence dignity or desperation? The truth may never be fully known, but the emotional damage is undeniable. Because now armies are not just proud of Jungkook, they're terrified for him. Terrified that the boy who once laughed so freely on stage is being pushed into a role that looks royal but feels like exile. And that fear is not something easily forgotten. What if the truth everyone is too afraid to say out loud is the one that burns the most? What if Jungkook, standing under blinding lights in New York, wasn't being celebrated at all but displayed, consumed, and sold? What if his silence, his downcast gaze, his tight smile weren't fashion statements, but survival tactics? This is the nightmare that now haunts ARMY. The more fans replay the videos, the more they see something that media refuses to acknowledge. Jungkook looked like a man trapped in a role, his beauty weaponized, his presence packaged into headlines and contracts. He was praised like a king. Yes, but what kind of king is paraded before the world without a chance to breathe? The controversy hit its cruelest point when leaked behind-the-scenes whispers suggested that Calvin Klein and Hybe choreographed every second of his arrival, from the car door opening to the precise angle of his walk. To some fans, this was confirmation of their worst fears. Jungkook was no longer free to simply exist. He had become a brand, a carefully engineered spectacle, stripped of spontaneity. The boy who once jumped into ARMY's arms with messy hair and unplanned laughter was now a curated image, draped in oversized fabric that seemed to swallow him whole. And armies couldn't take it. The fandom that once screamed with pride now cried with rage. "He's not your mannequin," one fan wrote in a viral thread. "He's not a prop. He's not just a Calvin Klein campaign. He's Jungkook, and he belongs to no one but himself." The replies exploded hundreds of thousands of likes, retweets, and comments, each dripping with heartbreak. But the controversy went even further, when clips surfaced of certain reporters mocking the way fans cried in the crowd, calling ARMY delusional for being so emotional over a fashion show. That cruelty shattered whatever calm remained. Fans who had traveled across oceans, who stood outside for hours, who screamed Jungkook's name until their throats bled, were now being mocked for caring too much. The irony was unbearable. The world demanded Jungkook perform perfection, and mocked the very people who loved him for his humanity. This is why ARMY is furious. Not just sad furious, because, to them, Jungkook's silence at New York Fashion Week wasn't arrogance. It was a warning, a quiet rebellion, a statement that if the world insists on treating him like an object, he will give them nothing but silence. And that silence is louder than any scream. The controversy is no longer about clothes or headlines. It's about survival. Armies are terrified that Jungkook, the golden maknae who once smiled so freely, is being forced into a throne built of chains. And that terror is what drives the trending hashtags, the emotional live streams, the sleepless nights. Because deep down, fans know the truth. Jungkook doesn't just shine, he bleeds. And the more the industry polishes his crown, the more his soul risks being cut by the edges. If armies were once content to cheer from the sidelines, New York Fashion Week turned them into soldiers. Soldiers not with weapons, but with words, with tears, with the unshakable power of millions united by love and outrage. Because what happened to Jungkook that night was not just a fashion show, it was a spark. and the fire has spread across the fandom like a storm no corporation can contain. The rebellion began quietly, with hashtags. Free Jungkook, protect Jungkook, high's not your product, words typed through tears, fueled by sleepless nights of replaying the same few seconds of Jungkook's walk. But hashtags became threads, threads became essays, and essays became full-blown manifestos written by fans who couldn't stand to see their idol treated as a brand first and a human second. "You call it fashion," one post declared. "We call it exploitation." And then, the breaking point. A video surfaced of a Calvin Klein executive laughing during the show, joking about how armies would scream no matter what Jungkook wore. That clip was enough to shatter hearts. Fans who had been torn between pride and confusion suddenly found common ground rage. How dare they reduce Jungkook's power to a marketing gimmick? How dare they mock the love of millions who see him as family, not fashion? Protests erupted not on the streets, but online, where ARMY is strongest. Fans began boycotting Calvin Klein hashtags, flooding their accounts with angry comments, even threatening to pull their support from future campaigns. Hybe was dragged into the storm too, accused of selling Jungkook's image while ignoring the toll on his spirit. The cries grew louder. "He's not just your ambassador. He's a human being." What made the rebellion burn even hotter was the media's response, or rather, its betrayal. Headlines painted ARMY as overprotective, obsessive, too emotional. That cut deeper than any insult, because it wasn't just Jungkook being mocked anymore, it was his fans, the very people who have carried him to the world stage. For ARMY, it felt like war. If Jungkook was being silenced, they would become his voice. If Jungkook was being paraded, they would shield him. And if Jungkook was being broken, they would burn the world before letting it happen quietly. The emotional explosion is uncontrollable now. Some fans confess they cry at night replaying his tight smile. Others rage in live streams, swearing they'll never buy a Calvin Klein product again. The fandom that once celebrated every milestone with fireworks and joy is now drenched in tears and fury, bound together by a single devastating truth. Jungkook is too precious to be consumed like this. And that is the most controversial reality of all. Because for the first time, ARMY is not just defending Jungkook against haters or rival fandoms, they are defending him against the very industry that claims to celebrate him. It's love turned into rebellion, heartbreak turned into fire, and the question that now haunts everyone is brutal. How long can Jungkook carry this crown before it crushes him?